On this week's episode of Circles Off, college football is right around the corner. Week 0 next week. We're bringing in Brad Powers, one of the best college football bettors around. He's going to talk about his process, how you can get better at college football betting, and we're going to ask him some tough questions as well about his pick selling. All that and more. This week's Circles Off starts now.
Come on, let's go!
Welcome to Circles Off, episode number 115, right here on the Circles Off YouTube channel, in audio form as well on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, part of the Hammer Betting Network. I'm Rob Pizzola, joined by Johnny from Betstamp. How goes?
Pretty good. Getting fired up for college football. I will say I am sick of having no football on, as is everyone in the betting community. Let's go. It's about time.
I agree with you 100%. I don't originate my own college football, but I have access to some stuff, and I bet college football. I just like that football's back. And by the way, no disrespect to the Canadian Football League, but there's only a limited amount of CFL games every week, right? Even with the bye weeks, sometimes there's weeks where 3 games. Like, I want to get into it now. So I'm excited for it, but we got
115 though.
Yeah.
To keep the tradition. Ryan Getzlaff.
Yeah, Getzlaff. Oh. Ryan Getzlaff, by the way, I'm in no position to talk about anyone's hair, I will say. But Ryan Getzlaff went from like full head of hair to like, you know, bald.
He went Messier.
He went Mark Messier in the span of maybe I've never seen a transformation that quick. I don't know what it was. Genetics, probably.
Yeah, it is what
This
it
is
is. Wearing the
genetics.
helmet all the
It
time.
is what is. Patty Mahomes,
We
obviously.
got Mahomes. We got Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Marshall, that's a good one. Michael Crabtree back in the day.
Sorry ass receiver.
Yeah, sorry ass receiver. I loved seeing Patrick Mahomes on quarterbacks. I love that show. It's great. I know some people are giving, like, to each their own. You're entitled to your own opinion. I like the behind-the-scenes stuff with quarterbacks. What I've learned, though, is that 50% of what these guys do every week is just, like, physio. Just pure, like, pain management. It's crazy. You know, you see stuff in the games. Kirk Cousins takes a big hit. He's rolling around on the ground. You don't really understand the extent of the hit and how that weighs on him for the entire season as it goes on. But it's pretty crazy.
And we can't move on without mentioning this guy just because MVP, whatever, say what you want, Nikola Jokic.
Oh, also, I was going to say Vince Carter.
VC. Oh, my goodness. We almost missed VC.
VC.
Holy.
It's over.
Thank you, Zach. It's over, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
Speaking of MVPs, Pinnacle Sportsbook is the MVP of sportsbooks in Ontario. You can now find them, and you can find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. You must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Not available to those in the U.S. And obviously, college football season approaching. Be candid with the audience. Pinnacle going to have some of the best lines of any sportsbook in Ontario, in market. If you're serious about getting better as a college football bettor, you got to line shop, plain and simple. There's like no ifs, ands, or buts. If you're betting with one sportsbook, you're doing it wrong. You want to select a bunch of them and make sure Pinnacle is one of those sportsbooks because you are often going to find the best line there.
Guaranteed, you need Pinnacle in your suite of sportsbooks for this college football season. If you are in anywhere in the United States, in Canada, hit up www.betstamp.app/circlesoff. Go to that landing page. You can sign up for any sportsbook there within the regulated space. There's a ton of different bonus offers now that it's college football season. In addition to that, you want to make sure you're line shopping, as Rob mentioned, get the best price. But regardless of that, it also does help support the show. So please hit the like, subscribe button as we always do. But if you're signing up for a new sportsbook, if you're in Ontario, we couldn't recommend Pinnacle more. Go ahead and sign up at Pinnacle. If you're in Canada, if you are in the United States, betstamp.app/circlesoff and pick a book that has good college football lines in your state. With that being said, we've got an amazing guest today. We're going to talk some college football. We're even going to potentially give out a pick, which is not normal for Circles Off. Uncommon. But with that, here we go.
We're now joined by one of the sharpest college football bettors on the planet. You can follow him on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, at BradPower7. He's part of the Bet the Board podcast with Todd Furman and Payne Insider. You've seen him on covers before doing release shows, and also part of the Hammer Betting Network on Hit the Books with Joey Knish every Monday and Friday throughout the college football season. If you're not subscribed to Hit the Books, make sure you check them out on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Check out their content. Brad Powers now joins us on Circles Off. How's it going, Brad?
It's going well. Thanks for having me, guys. Look forward to this.
Yeah, no problem at all. Obviously, college football coming up with week 0 next week. Wanted to have you on, give some insight into your process and how you've been so successful as a college football bettor. But before we get into that, let's get into the backstory a little bit. I learn more and more about you every time I listen to Hit the Books, or even when we have some off-air conversations. I think last time I talked to you, you told me you grew up on a farm and you're up at like 5 a.m. every single day. But I'm very interested in your personal background and how guy growing up on the farm, living that type of life, got involved in sports betting.
Yeah, so not a very usual track. Like, I mean, I've listened to your podcast several times, and people are almost like born into it. I want to say that, their dad or an uncle or whatever really into gambling and whatnot, and they just generally, took interest. Not the case with me. I mean, I don't know anybody in my personal family. Didn't even know barely any friends that were into the betting. What we were into as a family was college football. Hardcore. I mean, it was Notre Dame season tickets or a family vacation in Florida, and we had to decide, and we voted on Notre Dame football season tickets. So
that's
it was
honestly a good
mainly
move.
in my youth. I mean, football, and it just generally progressed to where the money is, and we know where the money is. It's more the betting side, and just also to personally say. It's also where I think the sharper people are. I mean, you flip on ESPN or any of the networks or anybody, just general football talk. I think it's low IQ, the highest IQ for the most part. Obviously, our industry, that doesn't account for everybody. But I would say when we're talking football and really deep diving, that the gambling space just intrigued me. So, after college, I was doing radio in Toledo. Wasn't much money. I originally wanted to be a print journalist, be a columnist or an editor. That was dying at the time 20 years ago. You could see, that going. I didn't like TV because I thought the people were fake. So I did radio for like 6 months, had my own show, sold my own ads, said, forget this. There's no money in this, and got hired at Phil Steele Publications. I thought I was working on a magazine. I just thought I was generally, just working on college football year round. And I got introduced to the betting side. I found out what paid for that magazine, and that being North Coast Sports. So away we went, learned how to handicap, learned how to market, tout, so to speak. Didn't learn betting until I moved here, but that's what got me in the start of like 15 years ago working with Phil Steele.
So Brad, first off, thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on. Anyone that's listened to the Hit the Books channel or seen you on any other piece of media knows that you can talk your ass off about college football all day, any team, whatever it might be. But obviously knowing college football as a fan does not necessarily relate to being in it as a bettor, right? Which you have also been known to do. So what we wanted to ask here, obviously, is a gambling podcast. What sets you aside? Is it just the football knowledge? Is there anything else? What sets you aside specifically as a pure bettor?
That's a great question. I would say I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'll put it that way. I obviously don't have the biggest bankroll, but what, allows me to get a lot of closing line value, what allows me to power rate teams probably as good as anybody, I would say, at least, at all 133 plus the FCS. I encompass everything. I mean, I have my own model, but I don't strictly go off my model. I know all the players, and I don't mean football players. I'm talking about the market influencers. And when a line moves, 90% of the time, I know why that line moved. I know, what, if it's a right angle or somebody else, I know who made that bet. I know why that line moved. If it's an injury, generally speaking, I know why that moved. So, I know how much a certain player is worth. I know that's speaking in generalities, but I think in college football, it's not the NFL. It's not like some, relatively set number. How much is Aaron Rodgers worth? I'm not sure that the market really understands what the Tulane quarterback is worth on a game in and game out and year in and year out basis. So, the fact that I work on it year round and specialize in it also probably makes me a little unique. I'm not jumping from sport to sport for the most part. Doesn't mean I'm not going to bet a little bit basketball. Doesn't mean I'm not betting a little NFL. But I mean, all 12 months out of the year, there's not a day that goes by where I'm not looking at something college football related.
So in regards to, I think that's a really good question in terms of what sets you apart and where you think your edge comes from. If you had to pick one of the two that you think is a greater contributor to your edge, would it be your commitment to following college football and knowing all these players year round, or is it your ability to apply, maybe to differentiate yourself from others in the way that you can evaluate players? Like, is it the commitment to the craft and the amount of time and hours you actually put in? Because we've had Eddie Walls on this podcast before, and he showed us binder upon binder that he's just writing notes in off season, and that's a time commitment. Is it that, or is it your ability to think differently from people and like just process things in a different way?
It's a really good question. It's a time commitment. What allows me to think differently and on the fly when I'm betting, making a ton of bets, and just can, off the top of my head, come up with a power rating and just know these teams, no matter who's playing one another, is the time commitment, the 12-month, a year process to deep dive these teams year round. I mean, if I don't do that, I can't do what I do on a day in and day out basis during the season.
I'm just a simple Canadian boy here. And months ago, I think you were attending some like off-season college football games that I didn't even know existed. And I'm like, holy geez, who is this guy? What a commitment to the craft to be able to do this. Out of curiosity, Brad, you've been doing this a long time now. There's evolutions in the sports betting space. I mentioned Eddie Walls because I highly respect him, and I think a lot of people highly respect him. But his process is pretty much all manual, right? I mean, he admits to this himself. He'll tweet about it. How much of your process is manual versus automated? And is there a reason that it's one way or another? Like, is there just a certain comfort in your routine now that you wouldn't want to change that?
Yeah, another really good question. I would say 70% manual still. That's just how I learn, is by doing. If I'm just scraping data, I don't know the interest, the ins and outs, and the sort of manual adjustments that you have to make once the market gets liquid in October, and you really have to understand it. I just, if I didn't do it manually, I'm not sure that I'd have the same knowledge base. I just don't. Now I respect the people that can just, they have their model, they trust their numbers, that, just, scrape the data and away they go. But I think you could have done that maybe 10 years ago and been fine. And I just think there's so many moving parts now in college football. I'll just say the roster. I mean, yeah, certainly it overturned 20-25% throughout much of college football history. Now it's 35-40%, and that's a conservative estimate. You have 35 to 40% of an entirely different roster than what you had just the year before. So I think you still have to manually dive into these teams to really have a grasp on it. To make 300 bets before July, there's got to be some manual. You're not scraping, play-by-play data on that.
Are you betting any other sports seriously?
No. Semi-seriously, maybe the NFL, but I mean, not off season. During the season, yeah, but not off season. So, yeah, I mean, it comes with, I better know my numbers because it's my whole. I can't afford to have, I had a losing college football season. Well, that meant I had a losing freaking year. So, I mean, it puts added pressure that I got to win every single year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. It's tough when you don't spread it around with other sports. So you have basically, a finite amount, a few months where you got to grind it all out and make a profit. I can imagine that obviously might be stressful. One thing I was going to ask is, since you are considered like an originator in the space, are you ever worried that, that edge may be eroded and like you won't necessarily know that it's eroded because you're doing all this media stuff, you're giving out picks, you're getting closing line value on the majority of the bundle? Does this ever worry you at all?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, and it hasn't worried me until probably the last couple of years. Maybe, I'm sure somebody listening to this, he's ratting on himself. He must not have been that sharp. I didn't move markets that much till the last couple of years. Now I move markets, and I wonder, hey, am I creating my own CLV? Not only because I'm betting it, but my following's bigger. People are reacting. I mean, they're not waiting until waking up on game day and betting my stuff. They're betting it within 5 minutes. Am I just creating this? I mean, I have a little bit more respect in the marketplace. people maybe are a little cautious to fade a guy like me now, where they didn't care who the hell I was even a couple years ago. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been there yet where it's affected the results yet. But who knows? I mean, I'm not going to sit here blindly and say that it's not going to get to the point where I have to question, hey, I can get to my numbers, I can bet them, but I'm moving it so much that my following just can't get to anything. So then I have to question my whole company, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I want to hone in on you saying that, questioning whether or not there are times where you're creating your own CLV. Because I've gone through a very similar experience in the past with betting hockey before, where there's just not a lot of people that are originating hockey. And whenever I would send out a bet, everyone would bet it. And I would inevitably, like any sports bettor, go on losing streaks where my metrics look great. I'm beating the closing line, 95% of the time, if not more, getting huge CLV, but I'm losing for a prolonged stretch, whether that's a month or a month and a half or 2 months. And that personally really weighed on me because I had no idea of knowing whether my edge was gone or this was just like an unlucky period. And I wonder how you deal with losing stretches, because I've actually seen you post to Twitter before, X now, whatever, in the past, where, you would have had a week with insane closing line value, like numbers that are unheard of, but you finished in the red. Does that type of stuff weigh on you? And do you ever question yourself when you do have one of those stretches?
It hasn't been a long enough period. I've certainly had some bad weeks. And let me preface by saying this, like, I haven't really been everyone uses professional bettor. I cringed at it when I was labeled at it even 3-4 years ago. I wouldn't consider myself a pro bettor until the last couple of years, where, if I didn't do anything else other than bet college football, could I make a living? That's how I identify it as, and make a decent living. Last 2 years, yes. So I haven't had, it's a short sample size, 2 years. I haven't had like a 6-week period where it just is gone completely haywire and I haven't won. Certainly I've had some losing weeks, so I'm not sure how I would handle that, Rob. I can tell you personally, individual plays, bets, weeks, I handle a lot better than what I did even 3-4 years ago. I mean, I was kind of a hothead. I used to, get visibly frustrated at certain results, but now I don't let it bother me as much. I say that, but I did let my college basketball betting affect me a little bit. Wasn't a good month. Was in the red, where I budgeted to be in the black, significantly in the black. The CLV was all there. I shouldn't be affecting a college basketball market. I'm not known as a college basketball guy. That affected me this past, March, to say the least.
Well, we're all human. I mean, it happens at the end of the day. When you get into the state of being a pro bettor, where the majority of your income is coming from actually betting and not, selling things on the side or whatever, it's challenging whenever you lose. I think people inherently just get frustrated, and that's fair. I mean, that's their livelihood that they're talking about, right? So I think that people can get irrational in that moment. But you talk about the college basketball stuff, and I asked you earlier, about your edge in college football, and admittedly you said a lot of it is just the amount of time that you're spending and putting into it. Do you think your approach to betting college football only works for that particular sport? Like, let's say you grew up a college basketball fan or an NBA fan or NFL fan instead of, Notre Dame football fan. Do you think you could have the same level of success doing what you're doing now if you had applied it to a different sport?
Yeah, I do, particularly college basketball. I think college basketball, generally speaking, is easier to beat. It's less liquid than even college football. So if I wanted to do the exact same process for college basketball, I certainly think I would be successful doing that, because, a lot of people just aren't doing that, and people ask me, well, what do you recommend? I'm new to sports betting. What do you recommend that I do? A lot of times I'll answer, hey, do you watch college basketball? Oh, okay, yeah, a little bit. Just pick a few conferences in college basketball. If you got a small budget and bankroll's not that big of a deal to you, pick the Ohio Valley Conference in college basketball, a few others. Bet that. If you're not looking to get down $2,000 a game, if $100 or $200 is a fair bet for you, I think that's the easiest market to beat, especially in November and December, when everybody like you and myself are still focused on, college football and the NFL.
Yeah.
I agree with that, because most people's argument to why not to bet college basketball at the bigger levels is like, oh, it's not that liquid. Even if I do crush an edge there, I'm not going to make that much money. But as you mentioned there, Brad, like if you're a $100 bettor looking to originate, like you're gonna have no issues getting down. Even if you're betting 2,000 a game, you can still shop around enough books that they'll probably take action that will sum to $2,000 a game. But even 500, let's say, like you're crushing that market, and focusing on one specific conference, as you mentioned, is probably quite smart, because you can actually stay up to date with all the news and injuries.
Yeah, it's specialization in a sense, right? I mean, everyone wants to have access to 150 college basketball games to bet on a Saturday college basketball slate, but how many people are going to actually be in tune with all those teams that are playing all those games? I mean, sure, you can put out a number on them, but I do think that there is something to specialization, especially when you have all these teams just being able to hone in on something. And, you know, if you really understand those teams or pick up on something that somebody running, you know, a season-long model is not going to pick up on, I think that just gives you a big advantage there.
I think it's also easier because there's more games. Like if you're betting and then just following a small market, like college football, even if you're following really small conferences and you know, teams that aren't as well known, info is on out there, like you're still only playing one time per week. So you get info, great, you just got a great bet. But if you can compound this, basically like where you're playing every couple of days in college basketball, it's a lot easier as well to win. It's just increased sample size.
Yep, totally agree with that. Brad, as one of the foremost college football betting authorities out there right now, curious, I mean, you're obviously very confident in what you do, but are there times where you don't necessarily trust your numbers or your intuition? So I'll give you an example, but let's say, I don't know, you're high on a team in market and you're continuously betting them for 2 or 3 weeks, but you're noticing that there is market resistance. The number always gets played back at you. How confident are you enough in what you are doing where you can ignore that? Or do you take note of that and be like, hey, maybe I'm missing something here, I'm going to dig deeper into this team? How do you proceed with a situation like that?
Another really good question.
Brad's been saying that after every question. I'll call him out right now. I asked the first one, and then Brad was like,
"You guys know I do a lot of media, and I don't. I mean, anybody can ask questions, but everyone's focused on the now. You know, they're focused on the picks and not the process."
I asked the first one, and then Brad's like, "Really good question," and I was like, "Wow, I was on top of the world. I felt like $1 million." And then he's been saying it after every single one. I'm like, "Oh, so." I got, but you had me feeling good for a second, Brad.
Well, he does work with.
Well, I'm here to tell you that I don't say that in most shows that I do.
Okay, good.
That's what I was going to say. He works with Joey Kanish on a weekly basis. He's not good to working, used to working with good media personnel. He's got to deal with the dredges of the Hammer Betting Network. Uncle K.
All right, sorry to cut you off, Brad, but you did have me on a high there for a bit.
Yeah, so it's obviously case-by-case basis. So it depends on what time of the season is. Obviously, I'm going to be more alerted this time of the year because, I mean, even a guy like myself that it's felt like he's, put as much time as anybody, maybe somebody knows something I don't at this point. Nobody's seen it. I mean, you can ask coaches that they don't, you can ask them. Well, I don't really fully 100% know until I see how these guys perform actually on the field. Specific to gambling, depends on who is coming from. Where's the resistance coming from? That's why I like knowing the players, the market influencers. I mean, obviously, I'm going to respect a right angle sports because of their long-term winning. If they're releasing opposite of me and on a consistent basis, then I got to question myself. Well, I mean, what's going on here? If it's, let's be honest. Unlike 5-6 years ago, Barney at the bar and the guys that come in and bet on game day can influence a market even in college football. So is it moving against me on game day? And I perceive it to be, hey, that's the 2 or 3 most popular public sort of plays for that particular day, then I'm not going to respect it as much. But I can tell you, I don't on an individual game week basis. Whatever. I mean, I'll go with my number. When it lines up week after week, hey, I am missing something with this team, whether it's my power rating, I'm not getting closing line value like I should. Then if it happens 2 weeks in a row, then I'm taking note. And I'm not as likely to bet on that team for the future week until I understand why this money is going against me.
In terms of, you mentioning a couple times now, potentially if Right Angle Sports is on the opposite side of you or whoever, when the screen moves or you see a number move, how do you personally know who's betting it? Is this, are you subscribed to services that move numbers? Is the information being fed to you specifically by people within other groups? Do you do any cross betting with other groups? I'm just curious because a lot of people, they're staring at an odd screen all day. They're trying to figure out whether this is a real move, a fake move, but they don't really have any intuition or understanding of who's betting what. Where do you get that understanding from?
Yeah. So it's all the above. Depends on my personal relationship with or lack thereof with that particular service or whatnot. A lot of times I exchange info. They like my info. I like their info. We exchange. Sometimes I buy their service. Yeah, I'm not opposed to, if you respect this person, you have the bankroll to do it. It's not impacting your bankroll whatsoever. I want the information. I want to know why certain stuff's moving. So I'll actually physically buy. There's some people out there, few and far between, but they're certainly out there. And then, I'm betting, somebody will give me a tip, on the side, and hey, we'll go at a certain time and we just bet together. We act like our own little mini syndicate on certain stuff, but it's mainly, I would say, Rob, just exchanging info. I'll get, you get my info and picks and I get yours. I know that's how we just move.
So with access to this information, I want to talk just a little bit about bet timing as well. And how much of your, let's say, weekly process, or let's say like each individual bet you make, are you actually considering the timing of the bet all that much? Or is it more so, okay, this is now in range, I'm going to bet it? Do you ever have conversations with yourself of like, okay, this is now in range, but I think X, Y, and Z actually might push this number out even further. I might wait on it to get a better number down the road. How much of like the timing of the bet goes into your actual consideration for making that bet?
Yeah, it goes in a lot. I got to think about that when I'm betting these circuit openers. Do I fire right now? Is that going to be the best number I'm going to see all week? A lot of my bets, I'm just being perfectly frank, maybe I don't have that big of a power ratings difference. Maybe it's a half point. But if I anticipate that, if it's around a key number, 3, 7, what you name it, it's a popular team that I just know I'm not going to see it. Do I think I have that big of an edge? No, but I think it's going to, I'm 90+% certain it's going to move. I just fire immediately. But, it is what it is. Now, throughout the course of the week, I wouldn't say I talk myself into it, but it really depends on the number. Again, I know people don't, it's a less liquid market than the NFL, but getting that 7.5 when you have 20 some outs and hey, that's not going to last. There's just some intuition there that when you follow the market as long as I have, I don't know how to break it down. Like, most of my betting is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, less bets at the end of the week, but I'm making bets every day of the week during football.
So let's get into that. Yeah. What does a regular week look like during CFB?
I would say the most important part of my process probably starts Saturday night, box score identification. I just go through every single damn box score. I know it's a lot of work, but it's not work to me. Where did I learn, not the betting side, but the handicapping power rating side? What did I, learn to look for in a box score? Phil Steele taught me some stuff to look at. So Saturday night, early Sunday morning, I just go through every box score, look for injuries. If I see 2 quarterbacks played, maybe I didn't catch the game. Why did 2 quarterbacks play? Was it a blowout or this guy get hurt? And do I anticipate a circa opener or, even a Monday opener? Will they have that information readily available to them? But just going through that, and to be on, my entire process, I like writing down a side and total off the top of my head. I'll give myself 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I'll go through the whole card. This is what I make the number, side or total. And then I go to my, power ratings, my model, so to speak. And then what does that spit out? The number should be. So I compare the two. And I know you guys are betting NFL or focused on everything there. My Sunday morning is, college football still. I have my NFL bets in. If some late breaking thing that I have to get off of something, certainly, I'll take part in a few NFL bets, but it's mainly just getting ready for, what Circa does on Sunday morning here in Vegas at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Then at that point, it's just, collecting more and more information throughout the week. I have my 40, 50 bets right off the top there. And then away we go. I mean, I'll bet, right angle releases on Monday. Other people I respect throughout the week where I know I'm going to get closing line value off of that. I'm betting their stuff, moving their stuff, trying to get off of stuff that I perceive to be not so good. I mean, it's a lot of people like what we do and it sounds grand, but it's mainly sitting in front of a damn freaking screens all day, 7 days a week. That's all it is. Or reading a Twitter, I don't even know what they call it now, when you have your list and whatnot. Yep. So it's just reading that and reading an odds screen. That's mainly what I do.
Yep. And on top of that, how much actual college football are you watching over the course of the week? And when I say watching, there's different levels of watching, right? Like there's sitting down on the couch and watching a game start to finish and really breaking it down. There's being at your computer and having a couple games up on the screen in the background where a big play happens and you look up and you kind of, what's your actual watching like over the course of the week? And if you are watching a ton of college football, do you think that actually helps you or aids you in what you're doing?
It's a really good question. And I know there's, people say you don't have to watch anything. You don't have to know any players. I'm kind of in between on that. Sometimes I think that you got to watch yourself. There's paralysis by overanalysis. During a college football Saturday, certainly I have my 5 TVs up. I'm looking for injuries. I'm a college football fan too. If there's a freaking Alabama's playing Texas, I'm gonna watch the Alabama-Texas game. A lot of times I'm looking for the next week. Okay, I think I want to bet this team for the upcoming week, number dependent, obviously. But, I'll get a quick look this week's game. What's going on with this team? So a lot of times I don't like watching my biggest bets of the week, so to speak, because I just want to remove all the emotional aspect out of it. Don't care, out of sight, out of mind. So I would say, tunely watched games, like really paying attention play by play. 3-4 games on Saturday, probably a game or two each day. I like the cut ups. I'm not saying I'm sitting there to the 3.5-hour TV broadcast. I like when the commercials are cut. I like what Big Ten Network, Pac-12 Network. You can watch the whole game in 42 minutes. They just go play. A lot of times I'll jump into the highlights, Rob. What the hell happened with this game? Was there a turning point, a significant penalty changed? College football is a little bit different in the NFL. There's a lot more emotional to it, one play can just, I've watched college football enough throughout my life. One play before the half, whether it's a penalty, a touchdown called back, an interception or turnover. I've seen momentum swings in college football impact that game so much more than the NFL. So I want to identify that. What the hell happened?
I'm with you on that one. I can't even tell you how many conversations I've had with other people before where I bring up just a random play that happened in a football game where I'm like, if this didn't happen, the bet is completely different. Whether it's, listen, it balances out I firmly believe this stuff balances out over time, right? Variance in sports is always going to exist, but there'll be a time where like a ref misses a blatant call on a third down or something, and that impacts everything after the fact. Like the entire game would have been different. And, I'm with you on that one in terms of, picking up on that stuff and watching games. A lot of that's never going to be reflected in a box score. Yep. You can just say so-and-so got a raw deal this game. Like they played way better, deserved to win, but there was some fluky things working against them, which, you can track luck in sports and whatever, but there's just certain things that I think you gain from watching sports that, the numbers guys, and I consider myself a numbers guy as well, are just going to miss sometimes because they don't have that level of understanding of it. But
people go crazy on Twitter and then like in anything saying like, oh, you can't win if you watch the games, but you actually can. Like I've even changed my stance on this over the years. You could win at betting just from watching the games. You just have to watch for the right things and watch the right games.
Yes.
So like to say you can win and then the game you're watching is like you're mentioning Alabama, Texas, like that's going to be extremely difficult. But you got to look, like I was shocked to learn the viewership, like nationwide viewership on some of these college games that might be on like ESPN Plus or whatever. It's like, it's shockingly low for what I thought, how many people would be watching those live. And there's books are still offering live bets on them. So it's almost actually beneficial to be like, okay, what are the lowest market teams that are going to get the least amount of watches? Go watch those ones and live bet them.
Yeah, and a lot of this too, like this, I love Spanky. He's a friend of mine. I had a blast at Bet Bash, but a lot of this stems from different betting styles as well, right? Like this kind of originated with Spanky saying, I don't watch any games, right? I can't even.
Yeah, but his style, you don't need to watch the games.
Of course, if you're betting the way that he bets, you don't need to know who the quarterbacks in the NFL are. Like that's not a factor that's needed. But if you are originating and you're betting bottom up and you're creating numbers on teams and you're competing against other people in market, I do think that there's an inherent advantage in watching and picking up on stuff or just being able to dig deeper into something. Maybe, I'm sure there's originators like Rufus, for example, that would disagree with that. But personally, Brad, I've always felt like there's just something there where if you're looking for the right things, like Johnny said, there's like a little edge to be gained that over other people.
Yep.
But it is definitely like a declining, diminishing returns principle in the sense that
yes, I agree
the more
with that.
you're not going to be able to do this, or I mean, to the same extent next year and the year after in 5 and 10 and 20 years. So like, I'm not saying that this is like a strategy that I would recommend to people moving forward. Right. Definitely not. But like, I've changed my sense. I've come around on this. Like, there is absolutely ways to beat even major market sports from watching the games, but the difficulty is high. But on the lower end, like, it's actually not even that difficult at this exact point in time. Could change in a few years.
It's a slippery slope because most recreational bettors will think that they can beat sports because they watch the games. And they're like, I watch a ton of NBA. I know the players inside and out. But that does not translate into being able to form a number on an NBA game and doesn't translate into understanding the betting market. So I'm not suggesting that anyone out there can just watch games. All of a sudden, they're going to be Billy Walters. Like that's not going to happen. But if you already have a grasp of how betting markets work and you already have an ability to come up with a number on a game, I think that this just gives you a little bit of an extra advantage, so to speak.
When they say they're watching games, the games they're watching is like USC, Utah, and like the main games that are on for the
Thursday
week.
Night NBA.
That no
Bucks,
one actually,
Lakers,
everyone's watching those games. You got to be watching. I'll even say this, like you got to be watching like Bowling Green, but even Bowling Green is actually pretty good. Like that's even a little bit too much. Like you got to go.
Yeah, people are watching the midweek MAC games.
Yeah,
100%.
you got to go way lower than that.
I think. And another thing, and sorry to derail here, but this is a passionate subject for me, but I think a lot of people often conflate fantasy as well with, betting. And somebody's a great fantasy player for them in the NFL or NBA, but is not necessarily worth that much from a betting perspective, right? Like a running back. How many times do you watch, NFL Countdown on Sunday morning and a running back is like a late scratch and you're going to hear the entire panel talk about how this is like a massive loss for the team and the betting market doesn't move, right? It's that type of stuff. So not everyone can just watch and be able to bet, but I think
they're talking about Tony Pollard being out, being a big loss for the Cowboys 2 years ago, and he's getting was averaging 8 touches a game.
Exactly.
Max.
Exactly, right? All right, Brad, we'll get back into it here, but obviously you have a huge commitment to your craft. I'm wondering if you're ever able to shut it off at all. So we were at Bet Bash last week. I was expecting to see my buddy Hitman there. Not there. Messaged him up. He's like, Rob, I literally can't get away from my desk during NFL preseason because this is a massive edge for me. There's people that I know that literally just will not take time off over the course of the year. And it's like, I'm working hard for the next 5 years of my life because that's going to lead me to take time off down the road. I'm curious where you stand. Is this a year-round process for you? Like when the national championship game is over, do you sit back and relax, or is it already on to next year, already starting to grind?
Yeah, it's already on to the next. That's just who I am as a human being, though. I'm not going to sit here and say, it's a grind and stuff. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but I mean, I like it. I enjoy it. I like looking. I mean, college football it's almost like European soccer. I mean, if you're fanatical in some aspects when it comes to college football, and I guess that's where I get it from, is from my youth, where man, I'm already looking forward to. I mean, the way that it's scheduled now, I mean, you know this in the NFL. It's year-round. I mean, you got year-round discussions. I mean, college football, right after the season's over, you're talking recruiting. And when recruiting's over, spring practice is starting. I'm a big spring practice guy. I mean, people say they're worthless. I'm just looking at players. I'm not, looking, I'm going to change my, power rating on a team 4 points because I watched their spring game. I'm just looking who can play and not always, necessarily looking for this upcoming season. I'm looking for a couple of seasons down the road, how good these players are, particularly quarterbacks. So that's April and May. Well, guess what's in May? They open up win totals for every team. Now, I'm not talking Alabama, Ohio State, where in the past, you get 20 win totals in the 4th of July weekend and some game of the years. I'm talking every team's available in May to bet on. Individual games, week 1, season win totals, you name it. I got to be ready. So the only way to be ready in May is to start this baby up, in February. There's no vacations here. If you're going to vacation, believe it or not, it's actually probably July because the markets get a little bit more liquid. Stuff's already moved. There's not much new stuff releasing. That's the time to break away for a couple weeks.
There you go. So, Brad, I want to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Bring it, man.
For those who don't know, no, it's not even about anything grilling. It's nothing like that. Okay, so for those who don't know, Brad is a part of the Hammer Betting Network, and I need Rob's help here with the schedule, but you do host Hit the Books during the college football season. What days are we looking at
Monday and
here?
Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Monday and Friday, 5 p.m. on the nose. Everybody tune in.
Well, not on the nose because somebody's got to get Joey Knish like a clock or
he's
something.
got to get his Diet Coke and his coffee.
Yeah, I joke about it all the time. Joey Knish thinks he's like Jim Rome in his prime, basically now, and everyone's got to wait around for him. Poor Brad had to wait, 15 minutes for filming a couple weeks back. But so as close to 5 p.m. Eastern time as possible. And if it starts a little bit late, it's because you know who it was.
So Brad, on that show, you and Uncle K, you do actually give the picks. You give the goods. You actually give out the picks that people can bet on a weekly basis, right? Those picks right there, we're going to tease those. You can go find those during the season. Those are for the regular games. What I want right now, I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us a surefire lock of the week, undeniable, can't lose parlay. Now, give us a futures bet that is undeniable right now. What's your best value bet we got right now?
Are you being serious?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm putting you on the spot. You said bring it.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like, why tout and stuff like that.
That's coming next.
Okay.
We're going to get to that.
No, I don't care
honestly,
about that. Give me a
the
pick.
market is pretty liquid at this point. I mean, shit's moved, to be perfectly honest with you. We just taped the SEC preview. And just to put in perspective, we got like 5 win totals. I still thought we're holding it to some value. They're positive EV. But you're laying like minus 150. So, I mean, Mississippi State under season win total under under 6.5 minus 160. That was my favorite SEC bet that we taped and recorded yesterday.
Mississippi
It's not
State.
a lock though. Yeah, just to put in perspective, Rob asked me earlier, do you ever get frustrated? You talk about closing line value. I had a game of the year with 24.5 points last year. I bet LSU plus 14.5 against Texas A&M. It was a week 12 game, but I bet it obviously in July. They closed a 10-point favorite. I got 24.5 points in my pocket. I'm obviously extremely should be a winner there. Comes down to some reason they're getting blown out, LSU 38-17, getting crushed. They score a touchdown. They go for 2, and they don't get it. They lose by 15 freaking points as a 10-point favorite. I got plus 14.5 in my pocket. So when people tell me, and I know you guys are joking, there's some sarcasm here, but when people tell me that there's a lock, there are no freaking lock. And there's just not. I mean, 24.5 points, fucking loser. Sorry, excuse my French.
Obviously I'm joking when I say that. I like to play on the satire of a lot of the people in the space who actually do believe like they talk like that. You know what I mean? Like, give me a stone cold lock of the week, can't lose, no miss, money back guarantee.
I was told when I was younger that every lock has a key, and it stuck with me forever. And it's I do like to make the jokes, but we should clarify to the audience who hasn't been with us forever. A lot of times it is just sarcasm here in terms of like the lock of the week discussion. It's not a real thing.
Nice. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and pencil that pick in. We haven't given out many picks on this show, to be honest.
We're gonna have to create a Circles Off betstamp account
for all the
this
picks
might have
that
been
have.
There might be like 10 picks in the history of this show
Max.
Yeah.
Probably, honestly, even less.
Well, we did the one Super Bowl prop
Yeah,
special.
no, if you don't include,
If you don't include that, then this is probably one of 3 picks, maybe.
That probably is what it is. So we're going to close off here soon, Brad, but I know Rob wanted to ask you about the touting stuff, so we'll let him fire that in.
It's important.
It's not going to be for me.
Listen, I can't let Brad off the hook because he's part of the Hammer. It's important for us to ask the questions that people want to hear, and I think one of the criticisms of you from anyone who would criticize is that you're a pick seller, and there's obviously a lot of stuff out there about if Brad is so good at betting games and why is he selling picks. Can you walk us through your decision to continue selling picks even though you're a successful bettor? And on top of that, does it bother you at all that there's a segment of the population that will always think less of you because of that decision?
Yeah. So I'll first start off why I did it to start. I mean, call it naive. I didn't know that there's such a negative connotation. Keep in mind, my first job in the industry. I mean, if you ask, this is bottom level knowledge of the industry I had when I started with Phil Steele. If you asked me what 110 was, I wouldn't have known. If you asked me what the vig was, vigorish, I would have thought it was a salad dressing. So I had no idea. I mean, I basically started when they gave me the information. I thought that's how, that's how you do it in this industry. You market, you give out, you do your handicapping, you have your picks, you have your bets, you give them out to clients. That's just how it works. I didn't know there was a lot of negativity towards it until I started working for RJ Bell at pregame here in Vegas. And then I was like, holy shit. I mean, wow, I didn't know people like me were that thought of negatively. So why I originally started it out on my own, didn't have the bankroll, didn't want to work a 9 to 5, thought I could help people, if not just the picks, but thought at least that I can concise some data into a nice little newsletter weekly that, maybe can at least at the very, save some people some time. I got all the data collected there right in front of you in a nice, neatly organized manner. Why do I continue? It's a really good question. I can't pinpoint it how much I will continue, especially if I believe that my customers can't get the plays. I'm starting to see that this year. Stuff's moving within 30 to 60 seconds. Ideally, if you can, other than those very few people that attack it, have multiple outs, and can really get down, I mean, obviously we know, I don't care how sharp I am. If they're getting a 1.5 worse than number, you can't win long-term that way. Obviously winning percentage goes down greatly in that regard. I'll have to see. I mean, obviously I'll take some steps, maybe only let 50, 75 people have it. I've always believed in this. I mean, there's certain levels of touting. I mean, going back to the boiler room, I've never been about that. I'm not saying that I'm a good guy. I'm freaking Mother Teresa, but anybody can free roll me. I think that makes me different. If I go 55, 60% in the season, somebody says, hey, I didn't like your service, I want a refund, I just give them a full refund. I mean, whatever.
He's getting all refunds. Didn't like
no,
fair
we
enough.
Should
At any point
cut that out, Zach. Cut it out before Brad gets the refund request.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, if everybody calls me up and wants a refund at the end of the year, it is. I mean, would it hurt? Yeah, but I mean, people do it. Obviously, they do it in the losing seasons. You wouldn't believe what they do even in the winning seasons. I don't know if you have one bad week, might just set them off. I don't know what people's personal bankrolls are. To continue to do it, I like having a diverse portfolio. And I see a lot of people I respect, and maybe they're not pick selling, they're not touting, but I see them diversifying their portfolio in this space compared to what it used to be. Hey, there's some money, maybe affiliates. There's some money, doing content. Whether it's, the old school content on TV, social media, you name it, podcasts, there's a lot of ways to monetize in this industry. And I'm just not going to, get after anybody that wants to have a diverse portfolio. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I like having a certain income that's on the books, so to speak. So when I'm making big purchases, big brother government's not, looking into my books. So, hey, this is the money I made from touting, selling picks. I can prove it. Here's all the sales. Here's what I'm going to pay taxes wise. I do it for that. I mean, also as well. I'm just being honest.
No, fair enough. I think that was a very honest answer. Yeah. I mean, listen, there's nothing more I can really add to that or nitpick at that. Everyone has their own incentives for doing what they want to do. I think that was well articulated, Brad.
I will say one other thing, Rob. I mean, because obviously I'm a very college football niche I'm not jumping from sport to sport. So if somebody shows me proof that if I can only bet college football and make this certain amount that I want to make, then by all means, I'll quit selling picks. But you had Ed Golden from Raz on a few months ago, and he didn't come out and say it, but he kind of hinted towards it. Even a group that's as successful as Raz has as many outs. It's a team. You got to evaluate, how much money I can make, content, pick selling versus how much I can make if I'm just solely betting. And I got to tell you, in today's day and age, that's not a for sure answer. Of course, you can make more money betting. There's a lot of money to be had, in content and pick selling. There just is. I mean, we're not talking 50 grand a year type stuff. I mean, this is significant money. And I'm not being, that sleazeball that's marketing a Pac-12 game of the week, game of the year, Mountain West game of the year. I'm not even doing hardly any marketing at this point, and it's still a very profitable industry. Does that make me a sleazeball? That's your definition. If it does, it does. To answer your follow-up, I don't care. If you asked me 2 years ago, Rob, that, I know who these people are on Twitter. I wanted some adulation. I wanted some respect. At this point in my life, I could care less what these people think of me. If you think I'm a sleazeball, then that's your prerogative.
Honestly, yeah, I would. It is what it is. Don't hate the answer at all.
We get it all the time. We've experienced this space. I mean, you mentioned the the RJ Bell situation, right? I think back in 2013 or 2014, I was a recreational bettor, wasn't winning. I made a tweet about like RJ Bell putting out some good information for NFL every week, and I don't think I've ever gotten more negative feedback on a tweet than I did in that time. And it was eye-opening for me, and I learned some things from that situation. But, even content we put out on a weekly basis, right? It's hard to separate the good from the bad. I think a lot of times people that are have a negative opinion of you are just going to be way more vocal than anyone else. Yeah. And I've gotten to the same point. That's life. Yeah. But this is Circles Off. We started Circles Off as a betting education type of channel. It's evolved a little bit, but we still preach betting education at our core. So before we get into our final questions here, Brad, I'll just ask you for a general piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring college football bettor that's looking to improve their betting.
I think I kind of hinted at it when I was talking about college basketball. Specialize. If you don't have that big a bankroll, most starting off people don't. They're not starting off with $250,000 as a bankroll. I didn't, obviously. Take a couple conferences, study it year-round. I think I would prefer you pick not the SEC and the Big Ten. I would say Conference USA, Sun Belt. Go after them, specialize in them, follow those teams year-round. I mean, you don't have to be Elon Musk, so to speak, or Einstein to get an edge in those markets.
All good. So in addition to that, we've been asking our guests recently for the last couple episodes to give out a positive EV and a negative EV play of the week or choose one or the other. So with that being said, this is not betting related. It could be, it could not be. Bradley, give us your positive or negative EV play of the week.
I think the most positive EV thing in my life right now is morning walks, preferably in parks or nature. Nice. As I get older, I just like it helps me think. It helps me, get away from things. That's the best thing that I do personally, I think it helps me professionally, to be honest with you.
Old morning walk.
What does a morning walk look like in Vegas? Got it like 100 Fahrenheit right now? It's got to be nuts.
I'll be honest with you. You have to walk at like 5 a.m. in the morning here because it's still 88 degrees at 5 a.m. in the morning. So, there's construction. It's tough finding a quiet place. It's not like a walk in other parts of the country, but it's still, I don't know. I'm a nature guy. I mean, and I have OCD. I count the lizards I see. I count the number of rabbits, coyotes. I'm like a little kid. I mean, it just takes me back to simpler times.
All right, Brad, and our closing question. If you could go back 5 years, just a measly 5 years' time, what is one piece of advice that you would give your previous self?
I'll be very specific, and maybe this opens a can of worms. We're going back to 2018. I would tell myself, quit pregame. You're not going to have a fun 2019. It's going to be really bad for you, personally, professionally, spiritually, emotionally. quit pregame ASAP. Move to New Jersey, take advantage, bet as much as possible. Don't be scared to bet as much as you can, because you have an edge, and don't listen to other people saying you can only bet 5-10 games a week. Bet the board, man. You have an edge. You know this sport. Don't be scared.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I think if you talk to a lot of bettors, they would echo that, in the sense that you hear a lot of, if I only had bet bigger at that time, or cashed in on that edge more than I did. So honestly, if you do have an edge, go for it. Obviously, play responsibly, bet within your limits. But if you're confident in what you're doing, I think you got to capitalize on it, because there's very limited opportunities in life that come by. His name is Brad Powers. You can follow him on Twitter or X or whatever, at Brad Powers 7. Check him out throughout the year with Todd Furman and Pain Insider on the Bet the Board podcast. And of course, head over to Hit the Books right now here on YouTube, or if you're listening in audio format, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the Hit the Books channel, where Brad is live Mondays and Fridays throughout the college football season with Uncle K, Joey Kanish. Brad, thank you very much for doing this. Best of luck this upcoming college football season.
Thanks for having me, guys.
This has been Circles Off, episode number 115, as part of the Hammer Betting Network. If you enjoyed today's content, rate and review 5 stars, smash that like button. We'll catch everyone next week.